So good evening, everyone. My name is John Stewart. I'm Associate Director, I'm Associate Dean for Cultural and Community Engagement at FIU's College of Communication, Architecture, and the Arts. And I'm also the Executive Director of FIU's Miami Beach Urban Studios. And I'm delighted to be here on Monday as I have with my partner, Deborah Briggs, on the Zen and the Art of series for so many weeks now, since Monday, March 30th. But tonight we are deeply involved in our current series, Overture to Overtown, which is a series that was founded by the Betsy and that we've been privileged to be able to work with them on during this special time. And I'm delighted that we've also been working with Carol Ann Taylor on this, and it's been an amazing and remarkable experience. And so together we're trying to remember, study, and celebrate Overtown through music, poetry, and scholarship. And it's we've had Dr. Dorothy Fields here. We've had who was the founder of the Black Archives. Last week we had Tim Barber, who is currently the executive director of the Black Archives, here with us. And tonight we have a colleague who I respect a huge amount, emeritus professor and author, Dr. Marvin Dunn. So as always, we invite you to reach out and connect with us through the chat. We may not be able to get to questions in the chat, but that shouldn't stop you from asking them, because we look through the chat afterwards, and if you leave your email address, we will get back to you and get you any information that you are looking for. And I also want to say that you can find these recordings of these events on YouTube, and they're collected on the Betsy's YouTube site, and they're on on the MBUS events calendar. And we'd be delighted if you take a look at them at your leisure afterwards. So I'm going to pass the baton over to my esteemed partner in this, Deborah Briggs, and thank you all for being here, and welcome, Deborah.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Appreciate the introduction, John. We are delighted to be back for our third of four sessions in this year's Overture to Overtown. And I want to thank you in advance to the audience for allowing us to mention our partners again, because without our community partners front and center, of course, programs like this never reach their true potential. And we do feel that that's one of the reasons this year Overture to Overtown has been so successful. It's because of our partners. So our presenting sponsor for 2020 is the Florida International University's Miami Beach Urban Studios under John's direction, with their funding partner, the City of Miami Beach. And I'm also on the board, the advisory board of MBUS, so I'm really proud to be here with two hats on tonight, the Betsy's hat and my MBUS hat. Other key marketing partners include WDNA Sirius Jazz, the GMCVB, which is the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Greater Miami and the Beaches Hotel Association, South Florida Cares Mentoring, which does a lot of work in Overtown with youth, Miami Jazz Cooperative, and the Sunshine Jazz Organization, Diaspora Vibe Cultural Arts Incubator, and a brand new partner this week, the Adrian Arch Center for the Performing Arts. And all of those partners have helped us to build an audience that is 250 households tonight, which is truly remarkable. There's so much competition for space. And so we're so thrilled that we have an audience that represents the entire world here with us tonight to talk about Overtown. And so now back to talk about our incredible curatorial partner, Carol Ann Taylor, artist, musician, activist, and entrepreneur. She is our cheerleader and consulting scholar, and her legacy as a performer and member of the Miami civic community has ensured our excellence in vetting and collaborating on every single aspect of these programs. So it's my pleasure to introduce her now, and she's going to take it away and introduce our first performers tonight. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, thank you both. It's great to be back for week 3 of our 4-week program, and tonight we'll underscore our straight talk with insightful poetry and music to provide an aesthetic lens to pressing times and issues. That said, I'm delighted to welcome our first 2 performers to tonight's Overtown Festival program, Nicole Yarling and Nikki Kidd. Their first 2 songs touch on the timeless and still persistent struggles of Black men and Black women in the United States. The third song prays for peace and understanding, one day. The Sun Sentinel recently said, every musical hat fits Nicole Yarling. Violinist Christian Howe said she's the real deal, and she is. In addition to a full performance schedule, pre-COVID, of course, she teaches at Florida Memorial University and the University of Miami, and dedicates considerable time to training young jazz performers in partnership with Miami-Dade schools. Nicole will perform The Shoes, a song she wrote with and about.
This next song is a song I wrote, and I'll say it was co-written by my brother, because he always said to me, "You just don't understand." And I didn't until recently. Here we go. You know, my brother said, he told me, "You just don't understand until you walked a mile in my shoes, the shoes of a black man." He told me many times over and over, I just couldn't understand. I never walked that mile the way that he did in the shoes of a black man. Yes, we would argue for hours. I tried to make him see that it was all his crooked thinking and not reality. Now I'm the one that got it twisted, and now I understand. 'Cause every day I walk the shoes of a black man. Hey, the shoes of a black man. The shoes of a black man. The shoes of a black man. You know, my brother said, he told me, you just don't understand until you walk a mile in my shoes, the shoes of a black man. He told me many times over and over, I just couldn't understand. I never walked that mile the way that he did in the shoes of a black man. Yes, he would argue for hours, tried to make him see that it was all his crooked thinking and not reality. Yeah. Now I'm the one that got it twisted, and now I understand. 'Cause every day I take a walk in the shoes of a black man. Hey, the shoes of a black man. The shoes of a black man. The shoes of a black man.
powerful, Nicole. And Nikki Kidd is a rising star in the jazz world with a recent viewing stating, Nikki has the style all her own, but still manages to embody great artists like Dinah Washington, Pearl Bailey, Eartha Kitt. She'll perform For Women, a song written by the great Nina Simone, who sits behind me, released in 1966. It tells the story of 4 African-American women. The great Nina Simone broke from the norms of the industry and presented direct social commentary in her music. Many have referred to 4 Women as a civil rights protest song and a feminist anthem. Yet at the same time, much to Simone's dismay, and despite her intention to highlight the injustice in society and the suffering of African American women, some listeners interpreted the song as racist. They believed it drew on Black stereotypes, and it was subsequently banned on several major radio stations in the Northeast. Yet the Village Voice called the song an instantly accessible analysis of the damning legacy of slavery, and the tune and its message have endured to this very day. Let's appreciate it together for all it meant then and all it means now. I think you'll agree that Nikki does this song great justice.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nikki Kidd, and thank you so much for having me here with Overture to Overtown. The first song you just heard me do was Don't Dream It's Over, which you can actually find on Spotify, iTunes, all streaming services, and I hope you enjoyed as much as I do. This next tune is called For Women, is by Miss Nina Simone, and I think it's very poignant for what's happening in this world today, and I hope it touches you as much as it touches me. My skin is black. My arms are long. My hair is woolly. My back is strong. Strong enough to take the pain inflicted again and again. What do they call me? My name is Ansara. My name is Ansara. Ansara. My skin is yellow. My hair is long. Between two worlds I do belong. My father was rich and white. He forced my mother late one night. What do they call me? My name is Sophronia. My name is Sophronia. Sophronia. My skin is tan. My hair is fine. These hips invite you. My mouth like wine. Whose little girl am I? Anyone who has money to buy. What do they call me? My name is Sweet Thing. My name is Sweet Thing. My It's time. I'll kill the first one I see. My life has been rough. I'm awfully bitter these days, 'cause my parents were slaves. What do they call me? My name is Peter.
Oh, Nikki, what a powerful rendition that was. The last tune in this set is performed by Nicole Yarling. It's a powerful mashup featuring a poem by Nikki Giovanni that is recited in the context of two related songs. It's mournful, it's inspirational, and it's 8 minutes long. So we want you to sit back, relax, and settle into this truth.
This next song is a song I wrote, and I'll say it was co-written by my brother, because he always said to me, "You just don't understand." And I didn't until recently. Here we go. You know, my brother said, he told me, "You just don't understand until you walked a mile in my shoes, the shoes of a black man." He told me many times over and over, I just couldn't understand. I never walked that mile the way that he did in the shoes of a black man. Yes, we would argue for hours. I tried to make him see that it was all his crooked thinking and not reality. Now I'm the one that got it twisted, and now I understand. 'Cause every day I walk the shoes of a black man. Hey, the shoes of a black man. The shoes of a black man. The shoes of a black man. You know, my brother said, he told me, You just don't understand until you walk a mile in my shoes, the shoes of a black man. He told me many times over and over, I just couldn't understand. I never walked that mile the way that he did in the shoes of a black man. Yes, he would argue for hours, tried to make him see that it was all his crooked thinking and not reality. Yeah. Now I'm the one that got it twisted, and now I understand. 'Cause every day I take a walk in the shoes of a black man. Hey, the shoes of a black man. Ha, ha, the shoes of a black man. The shoes of a black man.
Oh, that was really incredible. And thank you, Carol Ann, for pulling those performances together. And thank you, Deborah, for having them at the Betsy. It's such a special evening. And tonight it's extra super duper special because I get to introduce a colleague, Dr. Marvin Dunn. Dr. Dunn got his PhD in psychology at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and spent 34 years at FIU, and as was chairman of the department before he retired. He's produced 3 books. Black Miami in the 20th Century is one that I've used often in my classes and refer to, and I am indebted to Dr. Dunn's research, and I'm delighted to introduce him here today, and I'm going to be running the slides. So I just wanted to let you know, Dr. Dunn, you're muted if you want to unmute yourself, and I will get the slides.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here with us this evening. I'm very proud to be associated with the Betsy. It's just a wonderful place.
Yes.
That's not the first picture.
No, I'm going to get the, okay, hang on.
I think that's the second one.
Okay, I'll show you what I got. I'll show you the order I've got.
Okay.
Hang on, I've just got to make it full screen. Full screen.
Okay.
Full screen.
Yeah, I need the groundbreaking one first.
The groundbreaking one. Okay.
Yeah, the men digging.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Hang on. Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Let me find it. I'm always the graduate student. I'm ready to make sure my work is up to the professor's standards. And sometimes it's not. I've got it. Here we go.
Let me got it. Put that one
full
up
screen. Yeah, I'll put it on full screen, and then I'm going to share my screen, and we'll be ready to go in 1 second. Here we go. Here we go.
That's the one. That's the one. Well, my family arrived in Overtown in 1951 when I was 11 years old. We lived in Overtown very briefly and then moved to Opa-locka to Budge Park, where I grew up. But I want to begin our talk tonight with this very important picture. You may have seen it before. It went all around the world announcing the birth of Miami. It was taken in 1896, and this is the groundbreaking for the Royal Palm Hotel, a big hotel that Flagler was having built in Miami to start the city. And this photograph shows the first 12 black men who lived in Overtown, as far as we know. But take a look at this feature. You see this hill here? That is not a normal geological feature in South Florida. So these men started digging into this, and this is where the DuPont Plaza parking lot used to be, downtown Miami, very near the Bayfront Park, right on the water. So they start digging into this hill, and they find bones, thousands of Indian bones. They were the remains of the Tequesta Indians that lived here 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. These men are digging up those bones in that very ancient area ground, and they are dumping them into the bay at the direction of the white man, John Sewell, who is the man that is directing this crew, and he was head of the Flagler building crew in Miami. That's him on the far left with the sort of conductor's hat. If you look around this photograph, there are about 5 white men in the photograph. You can tell who the white guys are because they're the ones who are not doing anything. Just count them across the back. 1, 2, 3, about 5 or 6 of them. And that's the West Bend. That is very indicative of the way it started and the way it still is. There was in those days black work and white work. And black work was work that made you sweat, and white work was work that didn't. Incidentally, they dug up several of these bones, put them in 2 barrels, and they took them to John Sewell's house. He was, again, the Flagler foreman, to his garage. And over the course, when the hotel opened up, Mr. Sewell would pass out these bones to visitors who came and spent time at the new Royal Palm Hotel that Flagler had built. One of the worst desecrations that I think can be documented in Florida. So now these men, and the first few people who came in, were placed in tents in the northwest quadrant of the new city. The city was found a little bit late after this photograph was taken, but they put these men and others that came in after them in the northwest quadrant of the new city, and it was called Colored Town or Overtown. Now, before the railroad came in, I was told by folks who, some of the old timers in Coconut Grove, how the name Overtown came to be. They told me that if you lived in Black Grove and you wanted to go to visit your friends or relatives up in Colored Town, you had to go over downtown to get there, therefore the name Overtown. Anyway, that was the beginning of Overtown. I restate the northwest quadrant, and you know what? As that Florida East Coast Railroad came down and they built these communities, white and black communities, the black communities were always on the northwest, in the northwest section of town. That's why if you go to West Palm Beach, where do black people live? Northwest section. Fort Lauderdale, where do black people live? Northwest section. Come on down all the way to Miami, northwest section. And they did that so that the blacks would not be seen by the tourists, by the white people. They would be close enough to walk to work, but out of sight of the tourists and other white people. In fact, before the railroad came in, black people who lived here, and there were black folks who lived here, Coconut Grove and other settlers in Lemon City and what have you. Before the railroad came in, black people could swim in salt water, could actually get into the ocean. Railroad comes in, that stops all that. And fortunately, Mr. Dorsey, a black entrepreneur, purchased a part of what's now Fisher Island so that blacks, after the railroad arrived, would be able to swim in salt water. Let's do the next slide, please. This is one of the earliest photographs. Now, it's really a pose photograph of Colored Town, and it was a postcard that went around announcing "Welcome to Darky Town." You can see that in the bottom right. But it is a posed photograph taken very, very early on in Colored Town, and again, it was passed around as a kind of a tourist attraction. Next photograph, please. Now, this is sometime later, but this is what Colored Town began to look like as we move into the 1930s and 40s. People coming in, there was no unemployment to speak of. Everybody wanted to worked. Housing was very, very crowded. And I want to point out something about these houses and others in Colored Town as the community evolved. When the northwest section of the community of the new city was designated for blacks, the land was bought up mostly by white people. Now, Mr. Dorsey, D.A. Dorsey, was a black man, became his first black millionaire, came in from Putnam, Georgia, started building these little shotgun houses. We have a photo of one coming up. But for the most part, Mr. Dorsey didn't own all that much of Colored Town. White people bought the land up, built these houses, and rented them to black folks who came in, and made a great deal of money doing that. Now, I want to make the point about the value of land in the history of Black Miami, or rather the fact that blacks in Miami have been essentially landless. We remain so today. If you look at the land that black people live on in Liberty City, for example, much of it is owned by white people. So Overtown has always had the problem of people not being able to, many of them not being able to own their own properties because they didn't have jobs that supported that, but also because they lived in houses that were basically owned by white people and rented to them. The next photograph, please. This is an earlier photograph, a good bread alley probably. And I want to take a moment to point out that even though the heyday of Overtown was going on, you can see the Lyric Theater in the background of this photograph. If you went 2 or 3 blocks away from 2nd Avenue, 3rd Avenue, this is what you saw. Very, very shanty homes, very, very unsafe. The primary cause of death for Black children during this time was fire, because these homes, they're close, they're together. Once one of them caught on fire, you had a problem with many of them catching on fire. So these are the kinds of squalid conditions that existed in early Colored Town. Even as the heyday of the community was proceeding, you still had abject poverty not that far away from all the dazzle and glow and what have you. The next slide, please. Again, we think this is good bread alley. Again, it shows the kind of housing that people were moving into, again, mostly rental housing. Next slide, please. I think it's a shotgun house. We'll get back to that. I want to talk a little bit about the early police in Miami. When the city was founded, 1896, I'm sure you've been told that of the 367 men, there were 367 white men and 162 Black men that voted to start the city. They did not have enough white voters, only men voted in that time. So they ordered the Black men from the railroad, mostly railroad employees, to show up and vote for the new city. So that's how the city got started. But there were no police officers who were Black at that time. When the city started, they simply brought in these men from Georgia, country guys, gave them billy clubs, a badge, gave them guns, and sent them to Colored Town and to Coconut Grove. And their job was to keep the Black folks under control, which they did very, very effectively. I was told by some of the old timers that if you were a Black man in Overtown, Colored Town, 10 o'clock on a Monday morning sitting on your porch, the police would ride up and ask you, "What are you doing here?" And you would say, "Well, I live here." But they would then ask you, "Where do you work, boy?" If you couldn't explain to this officer that you had a job, they would arrest you for vagrancy. So it was an exploited relationship with the Black community and police from the very, very, very beginning. Brutal policing from the very, very beginning. I looked at a newspaper article that was printed around 1904, 1905, and it listed the people who were in the jail at that time. And of the folks that were in there, I think there were about 120 people in there, and 116 of them were Black men. It gives you an idea of how policing worked then, and perhaps to some degree, some would say how it still works. This is Chief Quigg. Leslie Quigg was chief of police in Miami back in the 1920s, and he became a legend. In fact, he was tried for the murder of a Black man. Can you believe in 1928, the chief of police, white man in Miami, was charged for killing a Black man? But he was so charged. Apparently, Chief Quigg and several other police officers, white officers, of course, took a Black bellhop, a boy named Kai, I don't know his first name, who made an inappropriate approach to a white man and woman, and they took him out. The police came and got him. The owner, the manager of the hotel, told him, "Don't kill him here." So these officers took him out, and basically they killed him. And came back in, and Chief Quigg helped them to cover up the story. So this was, and because of a lot of politics, the chief actually got charged with this crime. It was a joke because, of course, he was acquitted. It's just a matter of a few minutes. But the fact that in 1928, the police chief of Miami would be charged with killing a Black man was extraordinary. But don't be misled by that. The police were all white until the 1940s. Around 1944, they finally got some Black officers. They were patrol officers. They were not police officers. They could not arrest white people. They were sent to Colored Town and to Coconut Grove. And if they saw a white man breaking the law, they had to call a white officer to arrest him. These officers had no benefits, as did white police officers at the time. And in fact, they were sworn in the basement of the police department in secrecy. You know, that's fact, the police department at that time was in what's now the federal building, right across from the courthouse. And I found out in studying about early policing in Miami and Overtown at that time that the Miami Police Department, in the basement of the police department, had a makeshift electric chair that they had rigged up, and they would put victims whom they arrested, mostly black people, men and women. They would attach electrodes to various parts of their bodies, including their genitals, and would shock them until they admitted to whatever crime they were accused of doing. It was so outrageous that the white community eventually, through a grand jury, attacked that practice and it stopped. But it shows you how much freedom the police had in those days to do as they wished with anybody, particularly with black people. I think it's also important to point out that from the very beginning of the city, the black community, colored town anyway, parts of Overtown, were used by white people for all kinds of criminal involvement. Back during the Prohibition era, a lot of illegal liquor was handled in colored town. You go back a long ways into Miami history, and there was prostitution in colored town, where white men would come to colored town to have access to prostitutes. In fact, Northwest 20th Street was known as Hardyville because of the amount of crime up there involving vice kinds of crime, but mainly white men coming into Overtown to gamble, drink, and to have black women. In fact, it was sort of put down eventually because white women complained that their husbands were coming back home with venereal diseases that they got in colored town from black women. We've always had problems in colored town, Overtown, being a source of criminal pleasure for white people. If you move into a more modern era, during the crack period, for example, and cocaine era, when that was such a big problem in Miami, a lot of white people came from Miami Beach into Overtown to buy their crack, to buy their cocaine, to buy their drugs. You stand on 2nd Avenue, 3rd Avenue, you see all these kinds of BMWs and Mercedes-Benz coming in from Miami Beach to buy drugs. So much of the downfall of Overtown in terms of the crime and what have you is in large measure caused by the infiltration of whites, breaking the law, coming into Overtown and finding the way in which to do that. And we still suffer from that particular malady in this community. Next picture, please. Those are the kind of shotgun houses that existed in Overtown, Coconut Grove, all over the South for that matter. These presented a much more humane way of living for folks before they moved into these apartment buildings in Liberty City and elsewhere. But when these homes were built, a lot of them were built by Mr. D.A. Dorsey, as I mentioned, Miami's first black millionaire. Many of them like this were also built in Coconut Grove by Mr. E.W.F. Stirrup. But these homes, you know, the family had its own space. A lot of the homes had little gardens out front. A person in the family living in this kind of a home had a sense of space. Even if they didn't own the buildings or the property, they had a sense of space. And that changed as time went on and as more and more people came in, and Overtown became so overcrowded that eventually it spilled over into what's now Liberty City. Let's see the next slide. But before we leave that one, notice that these homes were, I'll just in retrospect, built up off the ground, built elevated, which allowed air circulation, very African derivation in the way these houses were built, and very Caribbean as a matter of fact. So air could circulate through the home, and the pets and hogs and things could have a cool place to sleep, to rest in the summertime. So these were very, very functional homes, and many of them were made of Dade County pine, which was eventually timbered out. But that's why many of them lasted so long. Okay, the next one, please. Politics. This happened in 1939. The Klan came into Colored Town, right before a very contentious election, city election, and they hung dummies like this on 2nd Avenue to discourage black people from voting. It was so outrageous, even the Miami Herald objected to it. The Klan did that. And it backfired. That particular election had more black participation than any election prior to that time, and for a long time after. The folks just wouldn't stand for it. The Klan would ride through Colortown at will, usually on Saturday nights. And people knew when they were coming, because the Klansmen would talk at home in the maids and the gardeners would hear, and they would warn people that the Klan was going to ride. So can you imagine 1920s, 1930s, you're living in Colortown in one of these homes, and you hear that the Klan is coming that night? What do you do? What do you do? Well, you have your children hide under the bed, and your wife. Turn out the lights, turn out the kerosene lamps, put out the lamps, and you hope that they won't shoot into your house. So there you are in the dark, on the floor with your wife and children, hiding from the Klan. How terrible is that for a man? Cannot protect his family. Emasculating. But this happened, not just in Miami, but in a lot of other places as blacks became more politically active. Next slide, please. Is that another slide after this one?
No, that was the last. That's the last slide.
Okay, all right. Let me just make some general comments. All right, please. The Klan was not unopposed when they would come through Colortown during this period. I interviewed a man named Mr. James Nemo. Mr. Nemo was a member of the Marcus Garvey organization. They had a very, very large chapter in Overtown, in Colortown. In fact, the Marcus Garvey building was the biggest building in Colortown. I was told the Klan burned it down eventually, but they were very, very active. Mr. Nemo told me that he was from the Bahamas, didn't weigh 100 pounds, but he was a very, very active, aggressive man who told me that when the Klan would come through, that some of the Garveyites would arm themselves and they would sit on their porches with their guns. And the Klan would ride right on by their houses, right on by to somebody's house where there was no armed person sitting. They were cowards. I can't think of an instance in which the Klan confronted armed black men. But their power of intimidation was extraordinary. They were infested, infested the police departments, particularly the police departments. As many as half the members of some departments were Klan members. They lynched a black man down in Homestead, 1920s, I believe it was. And this black man had killed a white police officer. And when that officer's funeral was held, it was the largest funeral in Dade County history up to that moment. And 100 Klan cars led it, which sent the message very clearly as to who and what this man was. I want to just look ahead now at what happened with the advent of all this crowding in Overtown. In 1932, when Franklin Delano Roosevelt was elected president, before he took office, he came to Miami. Actually came to fish and relax and gave a speech at Bayfront Park. There was an assassination attempt on his life, as a matter of fact. He was almost killed when he was in Miami. Right? He had not taken office, he'd been elected, but still had not taken office. Anyway, when he was here, Father John Coleman, who was an Episcopal priest in Overtown, convinced him, the president-elect, to come to Colortown and see the conditions I just showed you. And Roosevelt went and told Father Coleman, and I think the publisher of the Miami Herald went with the president and Reverend Coleman, maybe some others as well. But Roosevelt promised to do something about what he saw in Colored Town when he was there in 1932. And what he did when he got to Washington and became president was to authorize the building of the Liberty Square Public Housing Project, which was one of the first public housing projects in the country. Some people say it was the first one in the South. And that gave Black folks in Colored Town the option to move out and into the new housing project. And that was a joy for a lot of people because a lot of the Black homes in Colored Town did not have indoor plumbing, didn't have running water. They were raggedy, there were fire traps, they were crowded. And if you moved into the housing project, it was a concrete block building. And you had all kinds of things that you didn't have in Colored Town. Indoor bathrooms, running hot and cold water, a daycare, a community center. So a lot of folks moved into the housing project. Mrs. Range, Anthony Range, became the first Black person on the Miami City Commission, lived in the housing project for a while. Anyway, when the project was built, it gave this great opportunity for people to move out of this crowded condition in Colored Town and to move into Liberty City, which again, basically, although a lot of folks in that area ended up owning their own properties, you still had a lot of white people who bought a property in that area and then rented the properties to the Black folks. Look at a lot of the concrete buildings, call them concrete monsters, these 2 or 3 story buildings that sprung up in Brownsville, Liberty City and beyond. Again, were owned by whites who didn't even live in Florida. Many of them lived in New York and other places, and they rented these horrible buildings to Black people who had no choice but to live in them because they had been displaced from Overtown, particularly after the expressway came through in the early 1960s. Now I'll close with that and take comments or questions. In the mid-1950s, the United States government, federal government, and the city and the county and the state had to make a decision about I-95. The question was how to bring I-95 into downtown from the north. And there were 2 choices available. One choice would have had the interstate come right down the old railroad track, because by that time the railroad was not all that active. It was mainly warehouses, and it would not have displaced very many people. It would come right down the railroad track, right behind downtown, would have displaced far fewer people. And that's what the Black people wanted. They wanted that interstate come right down railroad track and leave us alone. And they advocated for that. The white business community didn't want that option. They wanted the interstate to come down along 7th Avenue to the west. And that allowed downtown to expand beyond the railroad track into Colored Town. Because downtown expansion was limited to the north, built up, couldn't go south, east was the ocean. The only way for commercial development to move was to the west, across those railroad tracks into Colored Town. That's what they did, and that's what they're now doing. Gentrification, I think, is called. The point is, it didn't have to happen. It would have been a lot less damaging to the people of Colored Town. Overtown, Colored Town went from about 40,000 people to down maybe 12, 15,000 people, less than 10 years because of that interstate. And the folks who were being displaced, for the most part, were not landowners. Many of them were landowners, don't get me wrong. But a lot of these folks were renters. So the folks who made the money when the interstate came through and the land was sold were white folks. And who owned the land that the apartment buildings in Overtown, in Liberty City were built, who owned those properties? Mind you, we had a lot of Black landowners, don't get me wrong, particularly in Liberty City in the early years. But what I'm trying to say to you is that land ownership has always been a problem in Miami and in Dade County for Black people. It has always been a problem for Black people in this country. We are essentially, by design, by intent of others, to be relatively landless. And that is in part the reason for a lot of the difficulty in getting a lot of our people out of poverty. So there may be questions or comments from folks. I'll stop and take those. I'm not sure how much time we have left anyway, but do you want to open it up, John, and take comments or questions?
I think we're on a pretty strict schedule here, and Carol Ann is like teed up
Oh, okay.
to be
All right.
asking. But I've got anybody who has questions, please direct them to the host, and I will direct them right to Dr. Dunn.
Okay.
If you just give your email in there, but I think we're going to move, if Carol Ann is ready to,
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Dunn. And before moving on to the next part of our program, I want to reflect for a minute again on your work. In speaking about your most recent book, you underscored the following. People of African descent have been in Florida from the arrival of Ponce de Leon in 1513, yet our presence in the state is virtually hidden. The history of Blacks in Florida has been deliberately distorted, omitted, and marginalized. We have been denied our heroes and our heroines. Our stories have vainly been left untold. We're proud through this series that we're doing right now, at least in small part, to tell important stories and share the artistic gifts of our community heroes. With that in mind, it's a pleasure to introduce once again our poet in residence for this series. Jeffrey Philp is a college professor, social activist, and working poet. Over the past 2 weeks, Mr. Philp has been sharing the work of African-American wordsmiths who frequented Overtown. Tonight, he'll read from the work of boxer poet Muhammad Ali, a truth teller and a larger-in-life hero. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Hello, my name is Jeffrey Philp, the community poet in residence for the Overture to Overtown series. When I was in high school, my friends thought it was a contradiction that I, as a peace-loving literature major, was so fascinated by Muhammad Ali. It confused my friends even more when they learned that I had saved up my lunch money to watch the Ali versus Foreman fight in the National Stadium of Jamaica. For the first 7 rounds, it seemed as if Ali was going to lose. But then in the 8th round, Ali knocked out Foreman and emerged bloody and scarred, and as he would say, still pretty, just as how I always saw him, the embodiment of a happy warrior. During the 60s, Ali, while he was training for his fight with Sonny Liston, stayed in the Sir John, a colored motel in Overtown, and became a spokesperson for Black America. Confident and intelligent, Ali, with his swagger and charm, personified the pride and the power of African Americans, who were singing along with James Brown, "Say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud." This generation, born in the heat of the Civil Rights Movement, led by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, who inherited the aspiration of Marcus Garvey and W.E.B. Du Bois, of Black beauty and pride, were willing to proclaim freedom on their own terms and without the validation of white America. In I Am America, Ali shows the kind of courage for which he earned the title, the greatest. Here's the poem. I am America. I'm the part you won't recognize, but get used to me. Black, confident, cocky, my name, not yours. My religion, not yours. My goals, my own. Get used to me. I hope you enjoyed this poem by Muhammad Ali, and until we meet again, walk good.
Thank you, Jeffrey, for your insights through poetry these last few weeks. You know I'm such a great admirer of your work. We're excited that next week you'll be sharing a new original poem called America 2020, drawing us in through your words to hear about the world as you see it. And now I'd like to introduce our last musical set of the evening, featuring Lisa Richards, Carol Ann Taylor, and La Vie. As you sit back and enjoy these songs, I want to invite you all to think of these cuts as love songs to Overtown, written by 3 unique and individual talents: George Shearing, Jerome Kern, and La Vie, the performer. John's going to tee up the music, and I'm going to talk over his teeing up and tell you a little bit about our first performer. And our first performer is Carol Ann Taylor.
Yes.
She has been with us as our co-curator, but is still an active performer. While active early on in the women's rights movement and successful in global business, she also sang in her early years with bandmasters Duke Ellington and Lionel Hampton. Tonight, she's going to kick off our Love Songs to Overtown set with Dearly Beloved by Jerome Kern and Johnny Mercer. Jim Gazer's on the piano and Jamie Ousley on bass.
Where do you come from? And where do you go? Where do you come from? My Cotton-Eye Joe. Well, I come for to see you, and I come for to say, and I come for to show you my diamond ring. Where do you come from? And where do you go? Where do you come from? My Cotton-Eye Joe. Well, I come for to see you, and I come for to say, and I come for to show you my diamond ring. If it hadn't been for old Cotton-Eye Joe, well, I'd have been married a long time ago. Where do you come from, my Cotton-Eye Joe? Well, I come for to see you, and I come for to say, and I come to show you my diamond ring. Where do you come from, and where do you go? Where do you come from, my Cotton-Eye Joe? My Cotton-Eye, my Cotton-Eye Joe.
The South Florida Times said, Lisa Richards exudes an authenticity that feels like a pair of comfortable slippers, and she sings with a core. She resonates soulfulness that draws you in and allows you to experience the songs as a participant instead of just as a spectator. Lisa's going to perform a classic, Lullaby of Birdland. It's another love song to Overtown. This one's by George Shearing, written in 1952. And on piano, it's the fabulous Jim Gazer with Nikki Orta on bass.
Lullaby of Birdland, that's what I always hear when you say, never in my wordland could there be words to reveal in a phrase how I feel. Have you ever heard two turtle doves, bill and coo, when they love? Never in my wordland could there be words to reveal in a phrase how I feel. And there's a weepy old willow, he really knows how to cry, and that's how I'll cry in my pillow if you should tell me farewell and goodbye. Lullaby of Birdland, whispered low, kiss me sweet, and we'll go flying high in Birdland, high in the sky up above, hell, because we're in love. Kiss me sweet, the hand will know. Flying high in birdland, high in the sky up above, we're in love.
Our last song in this set of love songs to Overtown is performed by Miami-born singer Lavi. She performs regularly with and is featured here with pianist Ellen Paul. She uses her music as a vehicle to encourage and empower audiences to seek out and experience the life at its fullest. The life is what la vie means in French, her first language. I Will Never Walk Away, the song you will hear, is her own work.
I could never think to walk away from you now. No, the feelings deep inside my heart will never allow. Though I may have played with the thought a million times, my legs will never find the strength to walk away. No, 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 I will never walk away. No, 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 my heart will never stray. I can never walk away from my true love. People always searching for the truth. I found it in you. Yeah. And to me, it might seem foolish to turn this loose. No, no, no. And though I may have played with the thought a million times, my legs will never find the strength to walk away. No, 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 I will never walk away. No, 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 my heart will never ever stray. I can never walk away. Yeah. No, I will never walk away. No, I will never walk away. Oh, my heart will never, never, ever, 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 ever stray. I will never walk away from my true love.
I can hardly speak. In planning tonight's program, Deb and I kept using the subtitle, Take Me to Church, to guide our selection of music and poetry. And that's because we wanted to create an evening of learning, inspiration, reflection, celebration, and aspiration. I hope we've achieved our goal, whatever your spiritual point of view or practice. We're going to close the night with a performance by Marcus Blake, whose poetry considers the complex and pressing issues Dr. Dunn addressed in his presentation through spoken word. Marcus's poem is called What Is There to Live For? And he performs with jazz improvisations by Jim Gazier on piano and Nikki Orta on bass. Marcus Blake is a multi-talented creator and recent recipient of an Oolite Arts Award, known for his work in design, urban murals, textile work, and spoken word poetry. Considering our subtitle for the evening, Take Me to Church, can we speak to you for just a moment to think of this closing performance as kind of a benediction? And so we leave you tonight, looking forward to next Monday night, with a question. Each one of us needs to answer this question on our own. What is there to live for? And why are we here?
What is there to fight for? Is it land that is not yours? Should we bring down the rich to uplift the poor? Maybe we should arm some with guns and tell them to kill all in the name of freedom. Should we fight for human rights, battle for the stars and stripes, sacrifice the children and the innocent civilians? What is there to fight for? Is it money? Is it true love? Is it oil mixed with blood? Some say it's for the power and control over another man's soul. Some say it's for their gods in the sky, why they can justify why other men have to die. Sometimes there is no answers to the questions why. People will kill people for absolutely no reason. Every day on planet Earth, people get hurt, caught up in the killing season. I know these aren't the answers you've been searching for, but the truth is, there is no cure for war. If everyone's got guns, tanks, bombs, jets, RPGs, nuclear submarines below the sea to protect themselves from the enemies, the biophysicist sitting in a lab with a clenched fist around the neck of a beaker, about to put the plague on loudspeaker so everyone can hear loud and clear that the virus is in the air. When will the violence ever cease? When will there ever be peace for you and me? When will it ever get better? Maybe tomorrow, maybe never. However, we must keep the faith that we could one day make Earth a safe place for the entire human race, because this little blue dot is all we've got until the next atomic bomb drops, which it will. Since the dawn of time, man's blood is being spilled into the lands by his own hands. When will we understand that we are like grains of sand, a very minute part of the grand plan? Hopefully one day we can get it straight before it's too late. But if you would like to do more, ask yourself, what is there to fight for? Period.
Well, I can't help but, after such powerful words by, Dr. Dunn, who kind of set an amazingly powerful context. I had a number of people kind of chiming in, thanking him for his powerful words and for all that he's continues to do for our world, and to help set the context for the kind of spoken word that we just heard. And so we kind of are on the road to passing from lessons learned to our next series, which is going to be about Overtown Rising, and we're going to have guest Neil Shiver, who's the executive director of the Southeast Overtown Park West CRA, and Graylin Swiley Woods, who's the executive director of the Overtown Children and Youth Coalition, to help us think about how we can move past and move beyond and kind of bring this history with us into a new and brighter future. So with that, I want to pass it over to my esteemed partner, Deborah.
Yes. And so because, as they say, a picture paints 1,000 words, we're going to put up an autographed image of Ella Fitzgerald as your takeaway for tonight. This image, like all the others we share at the end of our session each week, is from the Sounds of Freedom collection by Miami-based archivist Lenore Anthony. We've been sharing a legacy archival image and putting in the chat box a way if you want to see some archival images of jazz musicians and the words they spoke, because a lot of them were philosophical people and really saw jazz as a bridge to peace in the world and a great equalizer. And aside from that, you know, that's going to do it for tonight. We appreciate you all coming. Want you to all stay safe and spread the word about next week. Let's make our audience for next week our biggest yet and give Overtown the ovation it deserves. And I just want to thank all of our performers who just really put their hearts into our program every week, but particularly tonight. So thank you all. Take good care, wear your masks, and we'll see you next week at 7 p.m. Good night.